Kids are now playing football. Once they get the technology, they start playing football in their phone.
Yeah, well, you know, they could.
That's bad.
But then it's up to us as parents to make sure they're using technology the right way.
His name is Taliban. Taliban. You know Taliban? No, not Taliban. I said Taliban. Taliban. No television. No television.
Oh, no television.
Yes.
All right. I think I've lost my audience.
Content over everything.
So my point is, I think that we can do a lot of good with technology. I think it's up to each of us to not let our children stop being outside and doing this. To make sure that we're getting people that otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to be educated or to have a job, to leverage technology. Because I realize I can't do it on my own, but when I sit with the 6 other women in this class that we're doing, and I think about how technology helps each of their causes, how it helps the neurodivergent actually be able to have employment, how it helps drive other opportunities for those that are faced with poverty. When we think about the 13.5 million people in the UK that don't have access to banking, all of a sudden we have a way to help make this
But
happen.
how do you give a £700 phone to everybody?
You don't.
In
if you go to
developing
India,
country?
they don't cost £700.
You reduce the
That's
price of it.
capitalism.
Yeah.
So when we democratize these assets,
If you pay, if you pay cost price, how much would you pay for one of those? Supposedly, how much?
£700.
Cost price.
Not an iPhone 3.
so what you need to do is there are ways that we can actually find more cost-effective ways. Across Africa, I lived in South Africa, across the continent of Africa, they don't cost anything like that. They might be 8 quid, which is still expensive.
I thought they were like the really early sort of Nokias.
Yeah, they are early,
technology,
but what we're
isn't it?
seeing is in technology, the doubling of capacity and the halving of costs. Pretty soon we'll get to a price point which will make it affordable to those people. And then, I mean, I can see it. I look and say, if we can help people learn a computing skill, learn how to code, all of a sudden from that rural village, they can get an education. They don't have to learn everything, but they can learn a skill. And then they can start to be, we have a huge war on talent in the tech industry. And we can tap into people that today aren't even on our radar.
So what is this an HR recruitment drive with tech? I'm missing the main.
Well, it could be an HR because it is a fun job.
Excuse me. We're talking about this technology actually, right?
Not this specific,
No,
but
not
no.
specific
Yeah.
technology. But you're forgetting that to build a power plant for electricity, without electricity, that thing will not work.
So what
right?
we want is things like graphene batteries and quantum computing that actually then take the mass of what we need in that down.
To help the poor country, we have to start reducing the price
Yes.
of the equipment to produce electricity in a third world country, which you call. You know,
Yeah.
Thus, then you will have access to information.
Yeah.
Without electricity, there's no information.
Yeah.
For example, in Africa, just in Eastern Africa, almost 175 million people don't have access to electricity.
Absolutely.
So-
But there was a guy I met in South Africa, and his name's Saya Kuza, and he actually was from a rural village outside of Durban. He was fascinated when he saw a plane go overhead at the age of 6. He started to actually create rocket fuel in his family kitchen, which he ended up blowing up. He goes on to then win the International Science Fair, was given a Harvard scholarship, and actually now he's actually, right now, looking at how to actually take people's areas or their homes and turn them into power sources. So that's one of the things that got me started on this. Was here was this guy, from a rural village that by all Western accounts you'd think, oh, what can he do? And he's actually changed the world. And I think all of us together can as well.
Necessity.
Technology.
Okay, give her a big round of applause for Cindy! Talking about using technology for good.
I think you should give
So how are we doing so far, everyone?
Very good.
Aren't they phenomenal women?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, they're fantastic, aren't they? You're an anti-feminist.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, well, most people are anti-feminist.
Right.
Oh, good.
How are you finding our women?
There's only 7% of women that are feminists in the UK. Most of the correct adjective.
You're the wrong gender for this land, sweetie. How are you getting on so far? Are you really anti-feminist? I don't think so.
Well, I am. Most people are. I'm anti-feminist.
How many of you feel like they're a feminist?
Oh, God. Funny, that's about the right
Okay,
statistic.
that's about funny. You're not feminist? No? You're a feminist?
Certainly not.
I think feminism is a horrible idea.
Okay.
like
Are you
women?
for women then?
Yes.
Okay, for me that's part of being a feminist.
Quality.
It's all about quality. Okay, so... It's another what?
Another woman's
Why don't you give man a chance?
Why don't we give the men a chance?
Why don't you give man a chance?
That's a pitch for feminism.
Can I just say, talk about spreading a sea change. We have another woman stood up over there.
But hang on, 1 out of 2 people are women. Why are you so surprised?
Because I haven't seen many women at Speakers Corner. I've been here many, many times. But anyway, so thank you for staying.
Nobody's stopping them to come to bed.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we're hoping today that by us getting up here and talking about these really world topics, more women will feel compelled to get up and talk about what they think is important.
Good for you. Good for you. Well
So this is why we're here. Okay, so how many of you know a teenage girl? Have a teenage girl in their life, okay? Any teenage? How are you, lady? How old are you? What's that?
Well, I'm still talking about it.
Okay.
You're dangerous.
Well, I used to be one. It was a long time ago. And I tell you what, it wasn't easy being a teenage girl. But our next speaker does incredible work in the world. She actually has come all the way from Ethiopia, where she is doing a project over there, working with teenage girls to really empower them. And she is,
That's me.
Yeah, so this is Gaia, and she's going to talk about what do girls need. So give her a big round of applause. What's that? Give her a big round of applause.
Come on.
All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. Who is anyone a teenager here? Are you a teenager? Yeah. Put your hands up. Woo! Okay. Sisterhood, brotherhood.
He's a teenager man.
Well, you were a teenager once, right? You think so? Other people were teenagers once. What did it feel like to be a teenager?
Lovely.
Was it?
Old
Easy.
man all the time.
Smooth. Lovely.
Oh,
Anyone
beautiful.
else? What did it feel like?
Do you remember that?
For me,
I do it
hard
every
work.
day.
For me, it felt like a battle for freedom.
Yes.
That's what it was. The whole time, a battle for freedom. How can women speak about freedom? Because I'm free. I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm standing here talking to you, and I'm lucky because free to do what I want from patriarchy. People like
Not the patriarchy.
I can do what I want in the world, right?
Really?
And when I was a teenage girl, that was something I was fighting for, something I cared about. Today, I work in Ethiopia, and it's a country like many other African countries. There are millions of teenagers there, millions. Do you know how many teenagers there are in the world? 500. There are 1 billion teenagers. 1 billion. Yeah. That means if you put all the teenagers in one country, you'd have to fill Western Europe and USA.
It'd be like China. It'd be like China.
It would be huge. 1 billion, right? But half of those teenage girls, they have a completely different. Half of those teenagers have a completely different life. You have teenage boys in the world, teenage girls in the world. The teenage girls in developing countries, most of them are living an invisible life, completely invisible. Their stories are not heard. Their teenage years are all about shrinking freedom. Where I work in Ethiopia, 1 in 4 girls don't get a chance to go to school. They don't get a chance to complete secondary education. 20%? That's pretty bad, yeah. Why is that bad? Do we not want to educate our girls? Do you not want to educate 50% of our workforce? I think so. At least 30%. He was, yeah, that's what happens if you don't get educated, exactly. 20% of those teenagers are married by the age of 15. That means they're no longer in school, they're at home. Pressure to have children, no friends, and disconnected from society completely. So this is something that I personally want to change. I want to change it in Ethiopia, I want to change it in the world. I think teenage girls need a voice. I think they need to have a decision in their lives, to make decisions in their lives. They need to define their futures. And this is really important to us because there's so many of them and it's just growing. Our world is going to be led by the teenagers of today. So do we want that world to be led only by teenage boys? You know what teenage boys are like, right? Do we want our world only to be led by teenage boys? I don't think so. If you've got daughters, if you've got children and you want a world that is created for them, how do you do that?
He's quite nice.
You have to work. It's not healthy. You want a world that's designed by men and women, by girls and boys.
Men are happiest when women are free.
Exactly. What's that? Do we have it here in England? I think we're getting there. I think we're much closer to it than places like. Definitely. It is shocking. We are much further apart.
And I tell us about them.
Tell us about the girls.
So let me ask you: did you look at Ethiopia and the whole society? Did you look at the elite, basically? Did you look at the rich people and the poor people?
Yeah. So
is actually the rich people are in better situation.
But you know what? In countries like Ethiopia, there aren't that many rich people. Like 70% live under $1 a day, and it's those girls that are suffering.
Yes.
Those are the girls that are not getting the education. They're not getting the health systems. They're not. And people don't even know about their stories. And you know what? In somewhere like Ethiopia, there isn't a word for teenager. In Amharic, which is the working language of Ethiopia, there is no word for teenager because when a girl grows up, she doesn't have those teenage years. At about 12 years old, that's it. You know what she's groomed for? Being a mother or being a wife.
But the solution is just educate.
Education, but you know, absolutely, and that is absolutely the answer.
Educate the young girls.
But you know what? These things take time. So while we're building all those schools, which have to be done, and we're building all those hospitals, what do we do in the meantime? Because there are 10 million girls there, right? 10 million girls sitting, not quite sure what to do with their lives. If they've got a father who beats them, and if they're not able to go to school, and in Ethiopia, 1 in 5 girls say they have no friends. That is a statistic.
They're isolated.
No, they're isolated, exactly. So what do? So you know what we do? We create media, we create radio programs, TV programs, and we give them ways to think about their futures, to think about the decisions that are in front of them, to understand what's happening to them. And it's education, but it's education in a different way, exactly. And that's the next step. But first, so we do, and there are people working on that. How do you create employment? We don't want to employ teenage girls, we want them to stay in school. But we want to create opportunities for them when they come out of school. And we want to build aspirations. We want to build their dreams. They need to know that they can do something. They need to know that they can achieve something. And to do that, they need self-belief. They need confidence. They need to know that they are okay in themselves. One of the things, this is a weird thing to say in front of all guys, but you know what? One of the big statistics in Ethiopia is that 40% of people think having your period is something you should be ashamed of. That is a really horrible thing for a teenage girl. Because imagine, the first time you have your period, you think you're doing something wrong. People accuse you of having sex. That's what happens to millions of teenage girls there. They have no idea what's happening to their bodies. They don't talk to their mum about it. They don't talk to their friends about it. It's a big deal. They feel so insecure, they don't know who they are. So we need to show them who they are, and we need them to believe in themselves. And when they believe in themselves, they can change the future, and they can change all of our futures. This is a problem in Ethiopia. This is a problem for millions of girls around the world.
How are you going to change the system in Ethiopia to bring in like Britain, where to me this isn't an issue because I don't see them having that issue here.
But you know what? I would say it is an issue because you know what? There was recently a study on 14-year-old girls here, and what did it say? It said 1 in 4 girls in this country self-harm. 1 in 4 teenage girls are self-harming. And why is that? Now, there's loads of different reasons. It could be loads of things. But you know what? Underneath, so on that, underneath that is a low self-worth. They don't know where to go to. They don't know who to speak to. They are struggling. Teenagers, that is the nature of being a teenager, right? It's a struggle. It's complicated. You need help.
I accept.
Yes, go, please.
I accept the problem in a developing country. But
yeah.
In a developed country, wouldn't you then blame the problem on parents? I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm not a parent myself. But then wouldn't you blame the problem on parents?
The breakdown of the
because when you're reading about the grooming gangs, for example, majority of the females came from care homes, one teenage females. So how do we get them in that position? I understand if that happens in a developing country because obviously of poverty and stuff like that. But that's not an excuse for developed countries.
I think parents could do something. I think one of the things, I think parents can do something. I think schools can do something. I think there's systems that can do something, and we can create a more nurturing environment for girls. But I think all of us individually can do something, but actually believing in girls, by treating them as equals, by understanding their stories, by asking them, by listening. And I think it's all of us, for all of our responsibility. We can't just leave it just on parents. It's unfair. I'm a parent, it's hard. I'm not a parent to a teenage girl yet, but she will be soon, and I do worry for her. But what can I do? Because I also have a job. I have to provide an income for her. We all have responsibilities. It's all of us to create a better world. It's for all of us to create a better world for girls.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
You may.
When did the women of this country become really free?
Really free? I think it's. Are we free? Do you
what
feel
time
free?
ago? How many years ago?
When was emancipation in this country?
Years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
How
But
many
you know
years
what?
ago? Wait a minute. How many years ago?
But you know something? There's legally free when you feel, but there's a feeling of freedom, and I think we all know that. Feeling of freedom. Do you feel free inside you?
No, my question was for different things.
Okay, tell me.
It took women in this country, so-called civilized country, about 900 years to reach that position.
Exactly 900 years?
900. How many years do you think country like Ethiopia could take?
I think they may be way ahead of the game on something. Honestly speaking, can I just tell you something? I'm talking about teenage girls and a huge part of that population, but the country isn't all bleak. It's changing. It was changing in the last month. You know what? Their president last month is a woman. The Prime Minister has totally changed the politics there. He's taken out all the ministers and he's replaced them. 50% men, 50% women. He did it overnight. So there are role models appearing. Sorry?
But I was about to lob one.
I love a grenade, go for it.
Yeah, but...
Yes. Yeah, yeah. It is a religious country, but there are 3 religions there.
What controls on women by those religions stops what you're trying to achieve as well?
I would say it's culture. It's culture. It's not religion. Because some of those things aren't about what's in the religious text. It's actually about culture. But you know what? Culture is man-made. And guess what I want? I want it to be woman-made. And to do that, we actually have teenage girls.
Where shall we go there?
I trust my future right now in a man. Would you trust your future in women? What about your mother? Did she have your future?
Kitchen!
Shut up!
Kitchen!
Shut up!
Go.
Go and make me coffee.
Yeah.
Talking about the current system
Yeah.
of religious control in these developing countries is bound to have an effect on youth.
He means Islam. He doesn't want to.
Does religious control have no? But we are there because there is a culture that is hard to change. That is true, and it's been there for years. That is true.
That's why I said it will take ages.
Yes.
Eritrea has the same problem because Eritrea has the same culture as Ethiopia.
You know what? I imagine it probably does. I haven't seen it because I've not been allowed to go to Eritrea, but I can now in the last year. But I think it does. I tell you where it does have similar problems. In Rwanda, in Malawi, where we also are, in Nigeria, in India, you have these massive challenges about norms that you have to change, about the way in which people think. It's a mindset as well as it is a resource problem.
And here's a big problem. The only thing that was missing, the big elephant in the entire room that you won't speak, that word you won't use, is men.
Men! You're right. We need to...
But you didn't use the word you want.
What, the biggest problem is men?
Yeah, no, that is the other 50%.
That is it, boys.
Man,
Teenage boys, what I'm thinking. But you know what?
No, but my point is this: if you're not going to change the attitudes of the empowerment, if you like, of young Ethiopian 13-year-old girls, without changing
technology,
young 13 Ethiopian boys,
you are
technology.
it's just not going to happen.
You are spot
And I don't
on.
like feminism. I'm giving you a tip.
You
know, because the men are alienated. Guess what?
Yeah.
That thing you call resist is much stronger coming from the other side.
Yes, my friend, I'm with you, totally.
So,
this is all of us to do, and we have to speak to change the world for girls, we have to speak to girls and boys and parents and everyone around us.
But I'm just, my tip was your language is very implicitly couched in them being the other, being the oppressor.
Oh, the men.
Yeah, it was the substrate the entire time. Unless I missed something altogether.
Okay, no, I think we want to empower girls, but to do that we have to speak to everyone.
Yes, you do. Yeah. Because after all,
thanks for listening.
Wow, well done, Kaya.
Until now, I have not seen one single male speaker here. Discrimination.
I know.
What will happen?
He's next.
What will happen if you really get power?
Can I say something? One thing I've really noticed. One thing I'm noticing about the female speakers that we've had today, they're also very inclusive. They're very good at listening. If you notice, they're actually taking on your views and they're not being competitive with you. So I'd like to applaud all the ladies. They're doing a really great job. Absolutely, yeah. So, and this is about having a conversation. This is not about us ranting at you or forcing an idea. It's about.
What were you ranting at us? You have a good rant.
Taking a stand. The point of this is we're taking a stand. The point of it.
Tell it to the man.
Thank you. That's what this is about, us taking a stand for what we believe in, because we need this to be an equal world where there is a lot of debate.
And next time, bring your mates, bring your friends. More of you.
Yes. So we're talking.
Take over the park.
So we're talking about equality, and we've talked a little bit so far about women and men, and we need equality. We need to listen to men. We need to listen to women. And we also have another aspect to equality. We've talked about neurodiversity, which is really fascinating. So now our next speaker is going to be talking to another aspect of equality, which is about racial equality. Racial equality. Yeah. So what I'm loving seeing is we have a really diverse audience.
Yes.
That's her.
Which is to be celebrated. So our next speaker is an expert on this topic. So I'd like you all to give her a warm welcome.
No male speaker.
Ugo.
No male
Try not to fall down, people.
No, don't worry. We can.
It's not very graceful. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. Great to have you here. I want to share with you a vision that's important, I think, to me and to, as I look at the multitude of faces around here and the multitude of origins around here, the importance of having racial diversity at school, at college, and particularly in the workplace. When we think about organisations where we work, where we operate, they're not there just to make money, right? Well, ultimately they are. However, in order for them to make money, in order for them to be socially responsible, they have to serve us, right? All of us around here, the consumers and the social spectrum. But sometimes what we find with these organisations is that there's a maybe one-sided view. It's not diverse enough, and therefore, how are they appealing to all of us? Yeah. So if we just think for a minute, if we had had more diverse teams, do you think that Pepsi really would have asked Kendall Jenner to act in an advert where she was going to go up to a group of riot police and offer them a can of soda and completely diminish the work of the civil rights marchers back in the 60s? Because, maybe had they done that, and the equivalent of my mum and dad, belly clubs and dogs wouldn't have been set on them. All they needed was a can of Coke. Or let's think even about H&M, right? They wanted to sell T-shirts. So what did? They put a little black boy on a T-shirt and put monkey, and thought that was okay.
What about the Mexicans?
And the Mexicans. Look, talk about Mexicans. Let's also talk about blackface in university.
Oh, so Mexicans don't matter?
No.
How racist?
Mexicans matter. They absolutely matter.
I like it.
Why would you think they didn't?
Well, you insinuated they didn't.
Anyway, Trump is going to shoot them. Trump is going to shoot them now.
I'm going to apologise to you if that's what you thought. My point is, it matters.
Okay, but what about the Arabs?
Right. Everybody matters. Okay, so that's the point. The point is, everybody matters.
What about the whites?
And the whites matter as well. And the whites have defined the code, right? So actually, they're driving the party.
So you're saying race doesn't matter at all?
That's not what I'm saying, because you know what? That's a very colourblind attitude.
Exactly.
That doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't
No,
work.
it does work. Do you know why we stop discriminating against left-handed people? Because we stop paying attention to the fact that they're left-handed.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't think we should fixate on the person's race.
Right, okay.
First and foremost, we should fixate on the person's competence. End of story.
Absolutely. But when we decide that competence is only found in one person, that's the issue, my friends. And you know why I fixate on my race, or I don't fixate? But when I get up in the morning and I see this beautiful black woman staring back at me, and you're saying it doesn't matter, yes it does. So moving on.
You have no chance! You have no chance. Woman is okay.
When you stop thinking about it, you find a left-handed person trying to struggle with right-handed scissors, and it cuts into your thumb.
You know what? It doesn't matter to me. I'm left-handed. At the end of the day, what I figured out is very simple. Right-handed people are more incompetent on the basis that they're a lot less ambidextrous than me. Yes, I had to go through some hardship initially, but at the end of the day, I'm a more enriched and experienced person.
Alexander,
very good. And so as we move on, the last example I wanted to give you was around Starbucks. He can talk with his left hand, it's fine. So two young men stood in Starbucks waiting for a friend to come along. And so they were having a bit of banter.
Oh, you made him angry.
And then what happened then? It's okay, he can take his left hand and walk. And they made him angry. So what happened next is that the staff decided it was a good thing to call the police to arrest these two young men.
Do that.
Oh, no, they did. That's the point. That's exactly that. Having a conversation, they called the police. My point is, it's okay for us to be different. We don't all need to conform, but we do need to take in different perspectives. It starts at school, it goes through college, it goes through work, and it goes through society in which we live. So I'm encouraging all of you, all of us, to not be colourblind and say it doesn't matter, because it does. And what we need to be is colour brave, colour courageous. Now, when someone says to me, oh, it's difficult to start the conversation on race, do you know what? It's difficult for all of us, right? Because I stand here and as I speak, there'll be some people here thinking, oh my God, it's the angry black woman. But no, it really isn't. It's the passionate black woman. Yeah. And for some of you here, you may be thinking, oh, it's too difficult because I might say the wrong thing. Do you know what? Say the wrong thing. Say whatever you think it is. But at least it opens up the debate. Without the debate, we don't make progress.
Yeah, the tricky thing is that there's a big risk of being called racist. And that we can see now with the way that media storms happen, like Twitter. Yep. People lose their jobs over small statements that are not necessarily very smart, that they didn't necessarily mean, I don't know, because we don't necessarily know that person, but we polarize the debate into however many characters it is now. And so I think that makes people afraid of having this conversation because you would be afraid of somebody using that trump card, racist, and then no business, no job, no, all of that. It's a high stakes game. So of course I stopped having that conversation.
It is a high stakes game, but that's why it's incumbent upon all of us to create the environment where we can start having that conversation and it doesn't feel so risky. Right? So I can, like I said, I stand here, I'm sure everyone's going, oh my God, angry black woman, I really am not. And I'm not sitting there going, you, for example, you're too scared. Thank you. And passionate.
It's a bit of a dangerous thing to say because then other black people might think that, other white people might think that. Do you see how that might be a little
you're absolutely right. So thank you for that correction. Thank you for that correction. So I am passionate about what I'm talking about. And I think we all need to be passionate because this isn't going to change.
You're not angry anymore. You're not angry anymore.
I'm not angry. I am passionate. I am passionate.
And you're not angry anymore.
I was never angry.
What are we to do then? What are you suggesting we do? I know you're encouraging us to
Yeah, you are right.
I'm suggesting that we start having a conversation.
No, we didn't start anything.
But that's my point. We need to start having a conversation. And that conversation says here, for example, just us gathered around here. What is it that you would want to ask me? What is it that you would want to ask me, Sarah? Without feeling as though it's a risky place to start. We've got to create a safe place to have a conversation.
So I have a question, a genuine question.
But conversation with respect, right?
A conversation with respect, with honesty, with courage. A conversation which encourages us to start understanding and stop making assumptions. That's the conversation. They are fine until they're tested and they fall over. And when they fall over, you need to be able to change. And at the point you don't change, that's the point where actually you're not really contributing to the conversation.
Nice one.
Why do I have to contribute?
I want people to contribute.
No, so you're demanding contribution.
No, I'm asking.
Invited.
And if you, invited. And if you choose not to take that invitation, then there's the door. It's okay.
But can I ask you a question? All right, can I ask a question? Because I have, my perspective is like, let's look at people as human beings and let's look at their potential. We were talking about it earlier, right? So, for me to then, what I can't get at the moment is the importance of the subject to you. So for me, I see, now I'm going to feel like I'm stepping in the, this is already the thing, right? Because I feel like, am I going to step into dodgy territory? For you, it's about race. For me, it's about a person. So I guess my question to you is, why is it such an issue? I want to know more about why it's such an issue.
Why it's an issue, right.
Yeah.
So we talk, let's put aside the economic cases, let's put aside the business cases, then let's think about consumerism. Let's think about us as people, the consumers of,
But I want to know why it's an issue for you as well. Yeah.
I will get to that. The consumers of goods and services. I want things that are going to be able to satisfy me. Right. So today, if we think about the beauty industry, that's worth something like £4.5 billion in the UK. In the UK. If I want to buy products that work with my skin, my hair, what I don't really want to do is go to Selfridges and say, excuse me, can you get the Magic Girl products under the counter?
Yeah.
Why the hell would they not be on the main counter with, exactly, I love your surprise, because I'm sharing with you what really happens. And something that is not going to be, open to you, right? But that happens. Let me talk about
we're in the middle of something.
One second.
We're listening.
I'll continue with my story, and then you can comment. If I think about my younger son, just recently at school, they were reading a book at school, and it was called The Road to Johannesburg. And as part of that conversation, the teacher wanted to give them start a conversation about apartheid. Now he said to the teacher, I don't want to learn that from you. I don't feel comfortable, okay? She called me in and said, your son's being disruptive. So I said to her, help me understand the context to this. And she explained about this book and the fact that they were going to talk about apartheid. Then I reminded her that there had been a racial incident on him at his school just a few weeks before. And I said to her, now he and one other are the only two people of colour in this class. And you're about to talk about something without context, without any sort of understanding of why this happened, but all you're going to do is explain a concept to them. They're 9 years old.
How do you know they don't know? How do you know she doesn't know about it?
That's not what I said. It's the context.
She's not going to present the context?
She didn't present the context, because I asked her.
But it sounds like your son said no to it before he knew whether there would be context.
No, all right, so if I finish, he had an incident at school. That school for him, that incident was never resolved. And now...
That sounds bad.
Absolutely it's bad. So when you then say to him, right, now we're going to teach you why it's important to segregate people in races and tell you, by the way, at the bottom of that pile is you. And we never resolved your racial issue. It's an issue.
What's the good part of it? What is the benefit?
Wait, did the teacher, were they pro-segregation? Were they pro-segregation?
It's the school.
The school's going to teach apartheid like it was a good thing.
Is that what's happening?
No, they were going to give the context of apartheid, but just explain it. They were going to give the context of apartheid. They're going to explain what apartheid was, but not give the context of why and how it happened. It was just an explanation. This is what it means, the segregation of races. And for somebody, that was, well, it was.
That would be bad if it was about King Henry VIII. I mean, it sounds like crap teaching.
It would be. However, the point is, in all of the crap teacher, my son's the person who's suffering from this or is having a bad experience. So therefore, for me, that's why it's personally important. But there will be other instances. There was a time when I spoke at one of our London universities not so long ago, and they wanted to find out about inspirational women and women with inspirational careers. And I spoke to a girl afterwards, after this session, and she said, I loved what you talked about. She asked the most brilliant questions. But at the end of it, what she said was, I would never work in corporate UK or corporate America because actually they don't work well for people like us. And by people like us, she meant black because she herself was a black woman or a young black lady. Now the point is, that's talent, right, that we're not able to tap because people are purposely choosing to opt out because they're worried about the experience. So the same way that you're worried about having a conversation, there are other people who are also worried about the experience. So I think we're all worrying, we're all fearful. How do you get over that fear? It has to start with a conversation.
Can I ask you something? Because it's again another grenade coming in here. Which is the best way. That's how I always do it.
It's very nice.
Tokenism, you know what I'm talking about.
I absolutely understand tokenism.
Now, from your point of view, say, if I can call you as a black woman, I call myself a white man, whatever you want to label me, doesn't matter. Okay? The issue is, tokenism for me, I think, almost stirs up the racial issue itself, because by me saying I've got to put the token gay, the token black, the token white into an advert or something, is almost as big an insult as not just being able to leave a sector out and just...
I used to think that. I'm sure.
The reason I'm asking you, the tokenism
it's a reflection of society.
Tokenism for me is not real. In other words, sometimes we do things because someone genuinely will look like they're avoiding a racism issue by putting a black into something. Hang on a minute. And therefore saying...
I don't want to say it really out to speak.
I want to finish what I'm saying. And therefore saying, oh yes, I'm not racist, look, I've put someone in.
Right.
Now that to me becomes the token whatever.
Right.
Okay? That to me is as big an insult as it would be to just use
right, so, all right, so, I get your point.
More of this question.
I get your point, so let me try and address it now.
Thank you for helping.
No, my pleasure. That was Freudian.
I hope I made it clear.
Absolutely crystal clear. Now, what it isn't saying is every time you have an advert, you need to put somebody of colour in that advert because they need to be represented. What we're saying is when you get your marketing team together, your advertising team together, have diverse people in the room so they can come up with the right advert so it appeals to everybody.
I don't want to have diversity, but let's have diversity.
No. Diversity of thinking means more than...
Have the conversation together.
So we should have right-wing people in the room, presumably.
But you need to have
diversity of thinking.
You do, already. There's plenty of right-wing people in those rooms.
That's what we're talking about. Have a conversation. We mean,
if you are in that room where only people of one colour, they will come up with something where they're not necessarily touching on nuances, right? If you have other people in the room, then what they begin to do is say, yeah, that's fine, but you know what that might trigger, for example, by Gender Kenner giving the policeman a can of Coke, is that it just diminishes a whole group of people. It's starting a conversation. Sorry?
Yeah, can you explain that?
Right, because bringing down the efforts, bringing down the No, you're missing the point. I don't know whether you heard at the beginning.
No, I don't. I just
come back.
I'll come back and do it again. But any other questions?
Race questions. About race quotas. I don't. Can you maybe just elaborate on your views on race quotas?
I'm not saying that we need race quotas. I'm not saying that at all. Okay. But what I am saying is, when we think about hiring people, typically people are hiding their own image, right? Whether you like it or not, that's how it works. That works.
I'll disagree.
So what we're saying is, or the argument may be, let's go for people who are really competent at this job, and I agree with they need to be competent. But competence doesn't reside in one person and one view. It's wide. So what I'm saying is, open your eyes, right, and hire from everything in front of you, not from this small group.
My seat for the woman.
And it means we're going to have to start sending you. So we'll move on.
I work in government, and that's a heavily white industry.
It is.
Right? But I get hired at every job I go to, and I get job offers
weekly.
All right,
Because technology
Technology is color brave.
What? Technology is absolutely colour brave. And you know what? I work in technology too.
Yeah.
But there are people who don't have the same experience as you. There are technology companies who aren't yet colour brave and who aren't opening up to everything that's in. It's about being not colourblind, right? It's not about saying.
Grey.
Having a conversation.
That was for the last talk, not this one.
Okay.
Do you agree?
I don't know why Shirley chooses colours when not many other spectrum.
No, we gotta go for that. We gotta go for that.
What's your view on Tommy Robinson?
But should any voice be specific to one?
Oh, you did.
Thank you. Well done.
He's next. He's next.
Next
victim.
Next.
Have you been paid by the hour as well?
No, I'm a rich man. I don't need to get paid with you.
My favourite moment of the day is, well, we'd have to hire women as well. Thank you very much.
Well, you work in McDonald's, man. You said you're rich man.
No, I'm
Okay, so can we have another round of applause for you?
McDonald's manager.
Really inspirational. So we're talking about, race in the workplace. So we've talked a lot about diversity. We've talked a lot about equality. We need different people. We need to think about success in a different way. Who's been here right from the beginning?
We are.
This guy here. Oh, thank you for stepping out. How's the experience been for you, sir?
You're in the same group. You're cheating. No, you're all close together.
Yeah. You're cheating. You're cheating.
We can let the checks at the end. I know. Right, okay. I think it is the beginning. How has it been for you, sir?
Yeah, it's good. Fantastic.
Oh, that's not nice.
It's good. Why?
So,
What about Israel and Palestine?
we're not going to over there.
No.
Why not? Is Israel and Palestine not important?
No, it's not important.
It's just
Continue.
Okay, the plight of the Palestinian people is a very serious issue, right?
You're absolutely right. We are just choosing not to talk about that.
Why?
Yes,
Why is
yes.
it not important enough for us to talk about?
Because there are many.
No, not today. He's here. He's going to talk about it. He's here.
So, for those who've just arrived, how many have just arrived recently?
He's a freak.
So just to let you know,
I was here once. He was like, "You're not good."
can you be quiet for a moment?
We don't need you anymore. He sets the rules.
Who can do a really loud whistle? That's impressive. So for those who just arrived, so we have to compete with some background noise. We are here as a group of, there are 6 women that have been doing really fantastic talks today. They've all been on a journey to shape
We have to listen to that shit.
and a vision for something, because it's a leadership, they've been on a leadership course. And they've all been talking about a message.
Is your group not gender
they
brave?
feel really important. Can you hear me? Yes. Incredibly loud.
I know. I come here.
So, thank you for those of you who've been with us for the whole journey.
Yes.
Now, finally, we have only one more speaker left.
Oh.
That was the correct response. Thank you very much.
I'm only upset because they're being paid by the hour.
That's right. Microphone actually work, Heiko. I can't hear.
But can I ask you to come in a little closer, because we've got a lot of background noise, so just come in a little bit closer.
Hamster.
Just a little bit closer. I'm afraid our last speaker is going to look really...
Is there an interval?
So our last speaker is another phenomenal woman.
Can we switch them
Or
up?
not, because they've all been really incredible. But she is
I think all women are phenomenal.
She is a very seasoned speaker, and she travels around the world talking about the topic of poverty. So we're going to continue with this topic. We're going to continue with this topic of equality, but really this time not just about the workplace, but more on a global scale. I'd like you all to give Pin a really big...
Hi. I like it. It's that's better. She who dares. The secret brother over there. I'm Harpinder.
Brother, I mean sister.
Sasrikal. So, I'm
interested to hear a little bit from you guys before I start talking.
God,
right?
oh no.
So I'm going to talk about inequality and poverty, but I want to know, you mentioned the Palestinian cause. What are some of the biggest things that worry you about our society today? I want to hear from you. Go on.
Talk and no action.
Talk and no action. Hey, I like it. Go on.
Too many people on welfare.
Too many people on welfare, okay? Tokenism. I want to hear from you.
They turn it into a car
He worries me sometimes too. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about what keeps me up at night.
England versus
right?
New Zealand next Saturday.
Keeps me up at night.
Movies.
Worrying.
Filthy boy.
Movies.
Disgusting.
Tell us.
You have a boyfriend.
Tell us. Okay. So,
Go on, Steve, say it.
one of
Say
the big
radical
issues.
Come on, Steve, say
She's
it.
a Sikh sister, she'd understand.
One of the big issues of the day, one of the big things that is actually a huge problem in society, and it underpins a lot of the things that you have already been talking about as a group, as a crowd. It's poverty and growing inequality. Income inequality is what I'm talking about here.
What about
right? These
not time
are some of the
inequality.
things that are really holding back a huge swathe of the global population. 20% of the global population, that's around 1.4 billion people, are being held back while the rest of the planet, while the rest of the population is continuing to progress, continue to grow in wealth. 20% of the population, 20% of people around the world are being held back. They are not seeing year after year after year, they're not seeing any change in their livelihoods. They're not seeing any
statistically
change.
that's not true.
That is true.
No, it isn't.
That is true.
Bring the data.
That is true.
Where's your
That is
data?
true. That is true. That is true. I'm not going to talk to somebody who doesn't know the data.
Yeah. Tell us the data.
That is true.
Ignore
And
him,
it's
ignore him.
true.
Listen to me.
And it is true because when we see population growth growing, we see that as 80% of the population wealth is growing, the 20% remains pretty static.
Population
and
growth
what does
isn't
that?
growing.
Population growth is growing, and as with it,
Population is growing.
yeah.
Yes,
So
it is.
as
Growth
with
is
it
growth.
is income growth.
Right, because
Hold on. Let's not
rate
fight
is
over
going
poverty.
Let's not fight over semantics, right? Just listen.
Semantics.
Just
Be quiet, little bird.
Listen. So you've got these 20% of the people who are getting left behind. They're continuously getting left behind. And unless we start to do something about this, we're going to have 20% of the population that remains in extreme poverty, who are not often able to put food on the table for their children on a daily basis. Kids as young as 5 are going out to work, to earn money, to bring something back, to feed the family. This is unacceptable. This is fundamentally unacceptable. What are we doing standing here, listening to these endless speakers? Why are we not getting out there and changing the world, changing the system that holds us back? Right? He doesn't care. He doesn't care, right?
We don't care enough, actually.
I am.
Right.
I am. I am. I wouldn't be a speaker's corner if I wasn't talking revolution, right?
Which country are you talking
I'm talking about the world, right?
Which world? Which part of
So, okay, so if we're looking... Well, there's poverty in England, but it's not English poverty I'm talking about. I'm talking about extreme poverty. So I'm talking about anybody living below $2 a day. India, most of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, Haiti, look at Papua New Guinea, all over the world we're seeing extreme poverty. It's everywhere.
Are you aware that global
Everywhere.
poverty is falling? The number of
So,
people
okay.
live in poverty is
I
falling.
do know
Number of
that.
people is
According
not.
to the World Bank,
The rate.
according to the World Bank,
You mean the proportion?
so there is a solution. There is a
rich. What the problem is
There is a
capitalism, that
solution.
is the problem.
So there is a solution. Sorry.
Tell us your justification.
So the solution. So there's lots of work and lots of talk about the fact that we need to end poverty, but we're not going about it the right way. We just assume that economic growth will eventually catch those people up at the back as well and help them
100
grow.
million Chinese farmers pulled out of poverty in the last 20 years.
But they came out of poverty, absolutely. But how far did they really go, right?
I thought we were talking about
so
poverty.
we've got
They're
to
now
talk
out of poverty.
about.
You were talking about how we need to bring people out of poverty. They're now
So,
out of poverty. And you
unless,
can't celebrate
unless
you just want more.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the solution. There's one person here who's just focused on his own voice, right? But he's not on the ladder. He's not on the ladder. He's not on the ladder.
What's the solution?
So the solution is, right? The solution is, if we really want to tackle poverty,
what do we need to do? What do we need to do? You're silencing me! I'm being silenced! Can you switch them off, please? I'm being silenced.
Okay, come here. Come here, you.
No.
Come here.
Come
here.
No.
Okay, then shut up.
What's the cause? What's the solution?
What do you want to have?
An opinion? Unbelievable.
I'll be honest
What's the
with you. So the solution is, right, ultimately global poverty will not be tackled until we identify the people who are really at the furthest end of that spectrum, really far behind. We need to identify who they are, where they are, and then we need to actually change policies and put resources, the financial resources need to go directly to those people. They need to be targeted to them.
More jobs.
They need jobs, they need education, they need health services. They don't need to be completely ignored and left behind.
So Britain is one country.
They don't need to
Why has that not happened until
they
now?
are. We do know who they are in a vague sense, we don't know enough about them. So the data, there's no data on the poorest people. Often these people are invisible. They are invisible because they don't get captured in statistics. Often, 55% of the global 20% of people, they don't have births registered. We don't know they exist.
Are you proud of Britain's commitment to 4% of its income being given to foreign aid? One of only two OECD countries to do it.
0.7%. Get your facts right. 4% and 0.7%.
So us
Significant
Sweden are the only
difference
two countries that meet that target.
No, I'm not talking to you if you don't even know the difference between 4% and 0.7%. How can you even have a debate?
So you're not going to engage with Britain as a
Why is
world
it not happening until
I
now?
do. I think Britain is doing a fantastic job at trying to allocate. It's not about just increasing money. It's about putting it into the right things. There isn't a shortage of money in this world. That is not the problem.
The problem you've got, and I've got with this, you're talking about a globalisation issue. The trouble is the world doesn't work as a globalisation issue because the world is a geopolitical place of religions, tribes, and those tribes are what strangles this whole issue.
So this is one of the challenges, right? So there's systems that you have to cut through, right? And so until you start to really put the face of people onto the issue, so we start to actually understand who are we talking about here? Who are we talking about? Who are the most poorest people? What are their needs? Why don't they exist in the system? Why can't we see them? Why can't we target them?
Why are they produced by the system?
Why are they just ignored by the system?
Produced by it?
They're ignored by the system.
Why are they produced?
They're not produced by the system, they are ignored by the system. The system doesn't produce people.
It produces poverty.
The system contributes to poverty. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. The structures are set in a way, right?
So what do you need to change in the system to eliminate that problem?
I totally agree with you. And often we use the excuse that the system doesn't allow us, right? The system doesn't allow us to tackle poverty. So a system could be governance, the way governance is structured, it could be the global system, it could be the aid system that he's referring to, right? So what I'm referring to is what I feel is a system, is that we've got national statistics, we've got national data, but we're happy to make decisions based on aggregates, we're happy to make decisions based on model data. We don't really want to know and see real people. Until we move away from the fact that we're going to use economic metrics to actually make decisions about where we put our money, and we focus on real
poverty is an
people.
economic metric. Poverty is a metric of income, which is an economic measure.
Poverty is an experience of a person. Poverty
then
is
don't
not
quote
just
$2 a day.
Poverty
Don't
is not.
Don't quote 0.7%.
I didn't quote it. You quote 7%. You quote 4 up. Yeah, you quote 4 up. But I'm not quoting to you 0.7%.
So how will you know how will you identify these people?
You've got to use, right, so there's lots happening at the moment that is actually able to identify people. We're starting to see huge amount of progress. I work in projects in Kenya, in Uganda, And what we're doing is we're working at the local level, helping understand and what's happening at the community level. So we're using technology, we're actually surveying people, understanding who they are, where they are, and then we're trying to understand what they're helping them. Because you can do it quickly. You can do it quickly.
Have you heard about the Twitter chief?
I have, the tweeting chief. He's tweeting about some of these challenges, right? But ultimately, if we're going to deal with this issue, we need to put a face on poverty. We need to make the invisible people visible. We need to put them at the front and centre of the challenge, and then we can actually get to this issue. But until we do that, poverty will remain persistent. It will continue to contribute to the huge problems we see in our society today, and we all need to work together. I'm already doing it, my brother. I'm already doing it. I'm already doing it.
Are you going to go to North Korea and sort this out then?
North Korea is not having an impact in sub-Saharan Africa. I think we, you know what, I spend my time working on where these issues are happening. It's not about feeding people, we've got to change systems. We need action. I totally agree with you. We need action. We need action. So somebody like me is already acting. Well, I'm doing what I'm doing. What I'm doing is trying to increase data on people. We're trying to identify them at the country level. We're then going to the governments. We're giving the information. Recently, a project we worked in Kenya. So they do. We're working with them to help them map their populations to really understand where the problems are and get the resources to those people.
Why don't they listen to their
Why don't they bring us in? I'm going in to help them. What we're able to do is we're taking technology, we're pulling data together that can really target them.
They want to eradicate
There's a lot of
poverty.
different types
They
of
don't want technology.
They want to eradicate poverty, and that's where we work with them to make sure they're allocating their funding in the right places. It's all about putting the money into the right places to get the right results.
We need more good stuff, less bad stuff. May I say something? If you want to remove poverty, the first stage is this. The poor people must want not to be poor. They must feel more empowered. They're generationally disempowered. It comes on the poor people. It can't come from regime change. It'll take 100, 200 years. They must want not to be poor. That's how you do it.
It's all about empowerment. You're absolutely right. Nobody wants to be poor, but you've got to be. You have to be empowered. You have to have the tools to be able to lift yourself out. Without education, without access to services, without a voice, you are never going to lift yourself out, right? And what we do is work on how you get the information to the right people to lift them out of poverty. That is fundamentally what it's about.
Capitalism pulling everybody up by their bootstraps.
Too slow.
No, surely not, because literally 40% more people in 1961.
Sorry.
Are you assuming that I'm
Child mortality, 14% less. Things are getting far better because of capitalism.
Capitalism has made huge progress. I completely agree with you. You want to say that? But I want that progress to be a lot quicker than it is. 1.4 billion is not going to be reached in the next 10 years by economic progress alone. So we need to work faster, we need to be quicker, we need to take decisive action. If we don't take action, we can't rely on economic growth.
Surely if it happens organically, it'll last. It'll be much more long-lasting, won't it?
But
what you're trying to do is sort of
we're trying to speed it up, scale it up, target. Right? You've got to put resources into the right places and not focus on economic growth doing it all alone. That's never going to work. It's too far, too slow. It needs to be focused.
I think my personal view is that capitalism is the cause of poverty all over the world. You have to get rid of capitalism, I think.
Well, that is a whole other debate. But at the moment, one of the systems that is working is capitalism in lifting people out of poverty.
It's making life better for people.
It is.
Have you seen China? There's no capitalism in China.
It's a different form of capitalism. It's a capitalism by a different name. But thank you guys. It has been a brilliant talk.
Done it then. I guess that's it. Okay.
Will you take me now?
This is it. You've had all of our speakers, but can we just have all the speakers to come up here, please? All the speakers to come up here.
Give us another one.
Give us another one. Hold it. Let us introduce it. Yeah.
Another one.
Speakers, everybody gather round. Speakers and speakers. Selfie. Yeah. Can you give them a massive round of applause? Wonderful job. Thank you all for coming.
Marble arch. Okay, drop is right. It must be right.
Content over everything from your humanity. Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen. It's odd. So what I'm saying is growing at such a rapid rate. If we now have a society where, let's say, a large proportion of the Muslim population is covering their faces, how can you build relationships with people outside of the community? Do you understand that white people were saying, before we looked out the window and there's one turban, now there's two turbans, now there's three turbans. You understand? They were saying I know the narrative sounds